Good evening. We will call to order this board meeting January 18th, 2022. And Member Almond has the invocation and pledge.
Thank you. What I'm going to read is entitled This Year. I found it at the 36avenue.com. This year, break a bad habit, learn a new skill, do a good deed, visit a new place, read a difficult book, write and send a letter, try a new food, take a risk. Please stand for the pledge.
Let the record reflect that all school board members, superintendent, board clerk, and board attorney are present. Board clerk, do we have any acknowledgements? Okay. Superintendent, any agenda modifications?
Yes, the addendum for a good cause is marked on our electronic agenda by a green flag named addendum item. I would like to pull item 2A, Veteran of the Month recognition, and item 6R, 5-year facilities work plan.
Okay, agenda modifications from the school board members, and roll call order is Member Calderon, Member Sanchez, Member Kraus, Member Almond, and then myself.
No agenda modifications or questions.
No modifications. No modifications, thank you.
No modifications, thank you.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda outline?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion moves forward. And we have no presentation of our veteran as that was pulled, so we will move on to school district highlights.
And if Mr. Mike Rice would come to the podium, we'll have a presentation on our grad rate.
All right, good evening, Superintendent Beeman and board members. Tonight, you may have heard, we had our grad rate released a couple weeks ago, and once again, we have some great news to share and are very excited. So I want to take you through some information tonight on our 95.5% grad rate that we achieved as a district. Very excited and very proud of our work of our schools. So let me jump right in. As you see here, our increase has continued over the last several years, which led to this year's grad rate of a 95.5%. You'll notice that this is a huge difference, a 5.4% difference between us and the state of Florida. And as I mentioned, the continual growth over the last several years has been a K-12 initiative that all of our schools has put into this over the years. And we're very, very proud of the work of our schools, our teachers, our students, our families, our leaders, and just a lot of great work has gone into this. I want to point a couple things out for you. You'll notice from 2017 to 2018, that is one of the years that we had one of our largest jumps, the 88.6 to a 91.7, and that was when we really started taking a look at this and taking a look at our graduation rate and asking ourselves, what is it that we're missing? What can we do more for our students? And how can we find the students that are for whatever reason, not making it across the stage? And it was a very, very great, proud moment for us in the high schools to be able to celebrate that big jump. But that has continued, and even through the pandemic and the work of everything that's been going on over the last few years. I'll talk about this in a little bit, but the COVID waiver has obviously helped us. There's a code that has come in that has helped us for students that did not quite make it on their assessments, and I'll get to that in a little bit here. But to give you some perspective on this, just so you kind of understand, when you're looking at the grad rate, an important piece of this is that on a campus, 1%, so 1% growth, is anywhere from 5 students to 10 students that additionally have been found. So on a campus with 500 students graduating, if you have 5 additional students, that's 1 additional percentage. So they're really digging down to that student level and ensuring that every student, that it matters, and you can see as the growth continues to happen here. On the next page here, this is a chart that shows our subgroups and the work that has been done again by all of our schools. And not only is it being seen on a whole, but when you start breaking that subgroup data down, you can see that we have a trajectory that continues to go up in each of our subgroups. I do want to point out, even though we have done a lot of work, we still have some work to do, but to celebrate a few areas, I want to point out our black subgroup had a 4.4% increase. And that was huge. Again, all the stuff that we've been going through, all the pandemic and having students that are working from home and learning through their different modalities, we still have pulled out and brought and closed that gap with our black subgroup. Also want to point out the only group that actually has a small dip is our ELL students, our English for Students of Other Languages. However, what I think is important as you look at the numbers here is if you look over the last several years, back in the 2017 school year, they were down as low as 75.7 as far as their percentage of students that were graduating. That has jumped from that 75.7 in 2017 up to a 94.1. So that is just a huge, huge increase. And I know Minnie Cardona and her team have just worked so hard to ensure that, again, that we're finding those supports for the students when they come to us. We're figuring out the newcomers. She's got a newcomers program this summertime to catch up any students that might be falling behind. They work with the Plato students. There's an SAT and ACT preparation program they've been doing recently to make sure that those students have the opportunity to succeed, and just a lot of great teamwork from the administrators and the teachers, and a lot of great success in that area. So another area of celebration. As far as the grad rates by school, I do want to highlight a few of them. We've got our 2 schools that received the 100% grad rate, so that is a very cool momentous occasion. They continue to strive for the best and achieve it. That is Crooms Academy and our Seminole County Virtual School. But I also want to point out, as you look at Lake Howell and Oviedo High School, and look at the growth from 2017-18 school year. Lake Howell, for example, 91.4% on up to a 98.3% for Lake Howell. And same thing with Oviedo, 90.4% on up to that 98.6%. So everyone, as you see, has made that growth, but there are some that have really dug deep. And in my visits this summer, they all talked about how they work through some of these challenges that they're facing, and many of them have. They have huge spreadsheets, and they're going student by student, list by list, and they know their students' names, and this student is 2 credits behind, so we got to really work on this kid, and so they're working and digging individually. The other celebration here is we have our grad rate has put us at the top of the rankings when it comes to comparing to the other counties across the state. In all districts in the state of Florida, we are ranked as tying for 3rd overall. In the 14 largest districts, we are in 1st place. And in our Central Florida districts, we are also, that 95.5% puts us in that top spot. So very proud of this work as well. So as we talk about the great things that have happened, I think it's important, as I mentioned earlier, that we talk about the pandemic and some things that have been put in place to support the students and support the challenges that have taken place. We have celebrated the success of our schools, and I think it's also important to talk about some and kind of shift a little bit to look forward and say, here's some challenges. Here's the real talk of what's happening right now with each of our schools. And so in looking ahead, as you see here in 2020, on March 23rd, the department issued an emergency order which exempted our students in the 2019-20 school year as well as the 2020-2021 school year from the graduating class, that they were exempt from having to use the required assessments to earn their diploma. And so this chart outlines that if those requirements were still in place, it does show you that we would have been 5% less than the given 95.5% grad rates. The year before, we would have been 3.7% less. And so I look at that and I think, man, that's some work that could have been done a little differently, and we could have worked. But honestly, this is, when this was released at the point of the year, and I talked about those spreadsheets, it became you know what, this is in place, so they're not digging as deep. So that 5% drop probably would have been a little less had we really worked hard and pushed those kids. Again, this is just an assessment piece. They finished all their requirements of the credits and their math and English and science. But this is just to kind of give you perspective as to what would have been if we didn't have that grad code in place. And so in looking forward, as I mentioned, we have some challenges that we're working on right now, and the Operation Graduation Initiative is something that started at the beginning of this year. Technically speaking, we started this a couple of years ago, as I'll talk about in a second here. But right now, we are very focused on our 12th graders and trying to ensure that they do make it across the stage and that we maintain the high level of our graduation rate as we had in the last couple of years. Over the last 2 years, we've had the pandemic challenges. With that, we've had limited opportunities to allow for our students to test. Back in 2020, we did not test at all, and last year it was limited testing, and a lot of parents weren't comfortable sending their child in to test. And so when we took a look at our data, we also knew 4 years ago, starting with this senior class, when they became 9th graders, we knew that there was an increase on their concordance score. So if they did not pass the FSA, and their next opportunity would be to take an SAT, an ACT, we knew that those measures, those levels were going to increase. And as you see here, we moved up to a 480 on the SAT for this year's senior class. This is the first group to deal with that. And then an 18 on the ACT. And that's a combination of the English and the reading subsections. Another area that was removed, which was a big area for us, is the PERT assessment. And that allowed our Algebra 1 students to earn a concordance score using the PERT assessment. Okay, so if they didn't pass it on the EL or on the math, FSA, and algebra, then they could take the PERT and pass through. And we were having a lot of success with that, and that is now gone. Okay, so we have challenges. We've got those things in place, and when we started this year, almost 40% of our class of 2022 had not achieved at least one of their graduation requirements. So that's the challenge. We're working towards that. ELA was 33% of the students, math 14% of the students. So this year we've been working on various ways to overcome this challenge that we started with. Our schools each worked on an action plan, and that was embedded into their school improvement plans. We didn't want that to be a separate measure. We wanted to make sure that with our system initiatives that we have in place in our plans, that our students, our schools were taking a look at that deeply. We made some modifications. Our schools and our teachers are making modifications in their test prep for ELA 11 and 12 and our Math for College Readiness courses. And then we put measures in place with our STAR assessments. And we offered additional opportunities, which you'll see on the next slide here, for our students to take the SAT and the ACT. Again, the limited opportunities before, we wanted to make sure we had plenty of time this year, plenty of opportunities for our students. Are we testing them a lot? Yeah, but we need to make sure that we give them the opportunities to get across the stage, especially with all the work that they're doing in their English and math classes to get across. So those changes are working. We're working really hard on those. And as you see on the next slide here is a list of all of the assessments that our students are having the opportunity to take. And if you look back, we have on here that it starts in 8th grade, because these are all the measures that we're looking at and started looking at 4 years ago to say, how are we going to ensure that we overcome this new concordance scores? And you see on here in 8th grade, they start with the PSAT 8 and 9, and these are all supported by you, and I want to thank you for giving these students the opportunities. And so we've got 9th grade, we've got the PSAT, 10th grade, we're taking the PSAT, and you see the different funding sources here. 11th grade, we've got the PSAT, we've got the ACT, we've got the SAT, and then the same thing in 12th grade. And so there's a lot of opportunities for our students to be able to achieve that concordance scores. And again, thank you for supporting these measures financially and understanding the value in each of these. And so as of right now, I mentioned earlier that we started out at about 40% of our students not having a graduation, at least one graduation requirement. We are down now to 19%, so we have more than cut that in half. On the ELA side, we've gone from that 33% down to 16%. Schools are working hard to help these students to achieve. And then in the math area, we've gone down from that 14% to the 9%. So we are we're doing what we need, and the students are showing that. And we've got a couple tests, as you saw, coming up in March. We've got one at the beginning of March on the SAT, and then one at the end of March as well. And that'll be the next real big moment for them to achieve. Great things happening in the past. We've got challenges that we've felt and we knew were going to be a part of this year. Our schools, our leaders, our teachers, our students are overcoming these, and very excited to see where we end. I'll leave that presentation up to you, and if there's any questions, we've got to answer them.
Mr. Rice, thank you for the presentation. How do students who quit school without withdrawing impact our graduation rate?
I'm sorry, how do they?
How do they negatively impact our graduation rate?
Yeah, so when I talk about the students that we're tracking on our spreadsheets, every student that does not, that either leaves and goes to another county but does not enroll in that county, or they go to another school, maybe it's a charter school or somewhere else, and they do not complete, that is a tick on the negative for us. And so again, like if it's 500 students in the cohort, that's 1% that it would negatively impact us on the graduation rate.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. Very good. Appreciate it. Okay, board items for discussion. Any board comments? Member Calderon?
I just wanted to see if we, as a board, wanted to investigate the possibility of working collaboratively with the state on perhaps reviewing for this year as well, that the assessment does not impact the students in a negative fashion. We as a board have always stood behind accountability 110%. We know the assessments will be given this year. My concern, as Miami-Dade made a stand this past week, that they were going to ask for the same leniency in the testing, and looking at the data that Mr. Rice just shared, I just want to make sure that we're giving all of our teachers the best success and all of our students the best success, because as you know, I spent the morning in a school today, and there's a lot of absences. When the teachers are absent, the teaching isn't occurring, and when the students are absent, they're not able to take in all the great education that our teachers are imparting. So since it's an open forum, it's the only time we can discuss it, but I didn't know if we wanted to ask Ms. Beeman and her staff to maybe look at some data to see if this is something that is doable. I want to be respectful and work collaboratively with those in Tallahassee to focus on what's best for all students.
Well, and certainly we can put together information particularly about student absences, but also about staff absences and the impact on the opportunity for learning, and send in information to the state for consideration.
Because my additional concern, as we all know, we're changing assessments next year. So the information for the crosswalk, I'm concerned, is not going to be statistically valid if we're using this year's assessment as the high water mark. So there's a lot of data and a lot of statistics we probably have to look into, and I know it doesn't occur overnight, but I'd rather look into it sooner rather than later, and work collaboratively again with DOE and with our state legislators, and maybe even talk to Allie to see if these are even discussions that are occurring up there, because I'm concerned what the future may or may not hold, but I want our new assessment, whatever that will be, whenever the state decides, I want it to have some good crosswalk to some good assessment, so it is valid for the future as well.
Did they ask for suspension of school grades again? I only briefly heard.
Yeah,
about
I
what they
briefly read some articles, and I don't know exactly if they did a proclamation, if they wrote a letter directly to DOE. My other added concern is obviously the superintendent is stepping down in a few days, so I don't know if that discussion will continue in the future. I know I attended Central Florida School Boards Coalition this past week, and that did not come up as a point of information, and as we do as Seminole in the past, a lot of times we start the conversations, and I didn't know if we as a board wanted to start that conversation or not, so I just put it out there for us to comment.
Along with that, with the Central Florida School Board Coalition, we did discuss afterwards about progress monitoring and not really having a grasp on it yet of what's going to happen. And I think that's extremely concerning, especially since we're getting rid of one assessment, but yet we're not sure what we're going to do yet for the other assessments. And that is something that the legislators really don't have any idea what to do. And that's why it's extremely important that we all voice our concerns and write to the legislators, including teachers, families, students. I'll discuss it during my discussion of the coalition meeting and all the bills that are getting ready to go to committee and so on and so forth. But it's something that we do need to address and figure out what we're going to do and make sure that they overlap properly and that our teachers aren't having to try to recreate the wheel or take more, PLCs. They're already slammed with enough that they already have too much on their plate.
Are you finished? Okay. Thank you. I absolutely would support reviewing this and asking for a waiver, and also for school grades asking for a waiver. I think we need to have a further discussion, and if you'll bring data to us.
Absolutely. We could either put it as a topic on a work session, or we can create a draft and have that as a document that is in the next board book.
We have an open discussion work session on February 8th, so maybe you can draft bring up a draft and we can discuss it at that work session. I like it. I support that as well. I think
I'm just concerned it needs to be sooner rather than later. We're already second week of the legislative session, and I don't know if this would come from the legislative side, from DOE side, or in another executive order that was given last year. So I'd rather be ahead of the game knowing that we're under a time crunch here. So that'd be good.
you're okay with February 8th, or do you want it sooner than that? Okay.
I'm in agreement as well. And if anything that you put together, Superintendent Beeman, in advance, could we possibly get it so we could start working on it? Thank you.
Yes.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Is that all? Okay. Member Sanchez? No. Do you have any board comments?
No, not at this time.
Okay. Member Kraus?
No comments. Thank you.
Member Almond?
No, thank
And
you.
I have none either. So we will move into public comment. So, Member Sanchez.
The purpose of the public participation segment of the board meeting is to allow the public to address matters within the board's jurisdiction and not for resolving individual grievances or disputes. Public comments related to education, the board agenda, and the district are welcome and encouraged. A public comment opportunity is not, however, an open forum to discuss matters unrelated to education, to support or oppose candidates for public office, or to engage in commercial speech attempting to sell a service or product to the board or other public. Also, public comment is not a forum to engage in personal attacks against school system employees or board members. The public comment segment of the meeting is provided for the purpose of permitting persons to present specific matters to the board related to the board, school district, business, or operations and items on the board's agenda. To maintain orderly conduct, the public comment segment of the meeting may not be used for any other purposes, including presentations of political and or campaign issues, announcing candidacy and or campaigning, matters involving disciplinary actions, pending employee disciplinary matters, or pending claims, complaints, or litigation against the district or district personnel. No speaker may yield his or her time to any other person. Substitutions of speakers will not be allowed except in exceptional circumstances as determined by the presiding officer. Statement made by a member of the public shall be limited to 3 minutes duration. One designated group representative will have a maximum of 6 minutes. Each speaker who has completed the request to address the school board forum shall introduce themselves, give their city of residence, identify the matter to be addressed, and indicate whether or not they are representing an organization. Speakers shall direct their comments only to the board and may not address the audience or other speakers. Attendees must register their intention to participate in the public portion of the meeting prior to the start of the public participation segment. Once the public participation segment commences, no additional speaker forms will be accepted by the board clerk. This policy does not prohibit the board from maintaining orderly conduct or proper decorum in a public meeting.
Thank you, Member Sanchez. So this is the last call for any public record request papers to be submitted. Wanted to give one last opportunity. Okay, we will start with J.J. Holmes, then Allison Holmes, then Ed Meeson. I know, Mrs. Let's do that. We'll have Ed Meeson.
All right, I can see it plainly. Thank you. All right, Ed Meeson, Winter Park. I want to wish everybody a Happy New Year. Let's have a better 2022 than we had a 2020 or 2021. I would like to address bullying, not in the classroom, but in the boardroom. Yes, here in these chambers, we are all supposed to be here and to help provide a better education for the children of Seminole County. That is our purpose. This is supposed to be a civil procedure, and I mean that in both senses of the word. Please let me remind the members of the present here about the Seminole County Public School Policy Manual, code number 5517.01, bullying and harassment. The school board is committed to providing an educational setting and workplace that is safe, secure, and free from bullying and harassment for all students and employees. The board will not tolerate bullying and harassment of any type, and bullying includes teasing, threats, intimidation, stalking, etc. Bullying behavior is defined as if it has the effect of substantially disrupting the orderly operation of the school. These meetings are not operations of the school, but they are official Seminole County public school proceedings, and as such a civil process, and should be without bullying. When one person or group of people boos and heckles a speaker to the point where the speaker is drowned out and cannot be heard and their time needs to be restored, that is bullying. When a speaker is so out of order and unable to conduct themselves according to the rules and has to be escorted out of the building by the sheriff's deputies, that is bullying. By the way, if any of you have received threats of violence, the bullying has now risen to the level of domestic terrorism. I know there was some discussion last year about, oh no, there's not domestic terrorism. Well, that fits the definition. Bullying behavior is not allowed in a court of law. It is not tolerated in the classroom and should not be abided in these public meetings. I'll leave you with this quote from Desmond Tutu. If you are neutral in a situation of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. Thank you.
Kenneth Bentley, we will let you have the mic next.
Good evening, board. And I'm pretty sure you know why I'm here. I started an agenda last year and I'm going to continue this year also. But the thing I want to do first is say thank you. Thank you for participating in the MLK events this past weekend. It was great to see the superintendent and the board members and also Mr. Weissong at all those events. Thank you, and thank you for braving that cold weather yesterday at Crooms. It was super cold, but you came out. But the reason I'm here, and you know why I'm here, Black history. We got to get Black history in middle and high schools. I would like for it to be mandatory for all kids. I'm not advocating for Black history for Black students. I'm advocating for Black history for all students. And I want to remind you, the same kind of Black history I had at Crooms, at Sanford Middle, and Seminole High, the same history that Mr. Earl Minock taught and Ms. Juanita Harrell taught. I'm not trying to get violence in the schools, Black history. We honored a Black hero yesterday by the name of Martin Luther King Jr., and that's great, but it's other Black history. These kids have to know where they come from. They have to know important things that we've done in life, and I'm almost sure you'll get a different effect out of these kids. They have to know that they're somebody. Also, broadband. I took my mask off to come up here. We cannot put our hands on COVID. We don't know what it's going to do. It started off with COVID-19, then it went to Delta, now it's at Omicron, and I'm so scared that we might have to send these kids home again, but if we do, we need broadband. The district provided laptops for all the students, but it does me no good if I get home and don't have internet access. Please work with the county and the cities, the 7 municipalities in this county, and get broadband in underserved communities. Once again, underserved. Underserved could be anybody. Black, white, Hispanics, we need them. Once again, thank you, Black History, broadband, and let's have a super 2022.
AJ Holmes, and then Allison Holmes.
Yeah, sure. Is that like that? Okay. Are you ready? Right.
Superintendent.
Oops. Oh, that didn't do that very well, did it?
Beeman. Members of the school board. I could spend the next few minutes begging you to do the right thing. I could beg you again to follow the laws that protect students with disabilities. I could beg you again to not exclude me from my high school. But I thought, why waste my time? Because 3 of you don't listen and 3 of you don't care, so tonight I thought I'd use someone else's words, or actually someone else's lyrics, to let you know how I feel. And I really hope Katy Perry doesn't sue me. Here goes. I used to bite my tongue and hold my breath, scared to rock the boat and make a mess. So I sat quietly, agreed politely. I guess that I forgot I had a choice. I let you push me past the breaking point. I stood for nothing, so I fell for everything. You held me down, but I got up, already brushing off the dust. You hear my voice. You hear the sound, like thunder, gonna shake the ground. You held me down, but I got up. Get ready, 'cause I've had enough. I see it all. I see it now. I got the eye of the tiger, a fighter, dancing through the fire. 'Cause I am a champion, and you're gonna hear me roar, louder, louder than a lion. 'Cause I am a champion, and you're gonna hear me roar. See you at the next board meeting.
My name's Allison Holmes. Oh. Okay. Okay, my name is Allison Holmes. Even though I'm here addressing the board, my comments are really for 3 pairs of indifferent ears. 3 pairs of ears that all ignored the advice of every medical expert they consulted. Experts who unanimously recommended wearing masks to help slow the spread. slow the spread in the county that's currently about the third highest for COVID in the state. 3 pairs of ears that instead decided to listen to medical advice from a Disney worker. Step aside medicine and science in Seminole County public schools during a deadly pandemic, no less. We consult Disney workers. So we enrolled JJ in virtual school as a workaround, but unfortunately, we're not following the law there either. 3 months as a student in Seminole County virtual schools, and not a single piece of the curriculum has been adapted, not one assignment. He's visually impaired, so obviously, unless it's adapted, he can't see any of it. Now, I don't know whether this is discrimination or retaliation, but I do know there's a law in place that's supposed to give blind and print disabled students equal access to the work. Imagine doing 11th grade math without being able to see the equations, or trying to learn American Sign Language without being able to see it. Yet somehow you think it's okay to expect this of my son. And just to rub salt in the wound, the fact that JJ can't see any of it is being conveniently documented as everything's read aloud because reading it on the virtual platform is not his, quote, preference. You'd never dream of saying a student who's, say, on the autism spectrum needs support because typical student behavior is not their preference. You know what isn't JJ's preference? Not being able to see any of his work, and that's also against the law. Now, my preference is to be given the same freedoms and choices that you 3 voted to give your MAGA moms, or Liberty moms, whatever they're called. But, as that'll never happen, my preference is for you to provide JJ with an education that at bare minimum meets the basic legal threshold. My preference is for the district to stop treating our son like a second-class citizen.
Jessica Tillman, followed by Kelly Shilson, and then Joseph D'Alessandro. And Jessica is speaking for Moms for Liberty.
Good afternoon. My name is Jessica Tillman. I am a Longwood resident, mother of 4 young children. I am speaking on behalf of Moms for Liberty, Seminole County. I want to share some positive experiences I've had with the district. We moved here for the schools, like so many others. I've been an involved parent always. My oldest started kindergarten here. She went through Woodlands Elementary and started Rock Lake Middle last year. She had some really amazing teachers. I volunteered, I chaperoned, I had teacher conferences. My daughter won the bike at the bike rodeo one year. My husband's business has donated to Woodlands. We were very pleased with her education. We have a certain level of expectations for our kids. We want the best for them, and we do our best to lead by example, which is why we wanted to move here, because SCPS is always about excellence. I loved my job with the district. I loved being an assistant manager. At the time, I was going through school to become a registered dietitian, so my goal, quite literally, was to work my way up working with Red Apple Dining. When COVID happened and we did not come back to work that year, I was given the opportunity to work in the district office with Red Apple Dining to finish out my contract. I am very grateful for this unique experience the district offered to keep me working. When I returned to work and was required to wear a mask all day, I lasted 4 days, doing hard labor in a kitchen in a mask before I quit. It was hard to breathe. I could not communicate well with my coworkers in a loud kitchen and felt judged for taking off my mask to drink water. I was not able to make that choice for myself, and you continue to attempt to force medical choices on your employees. You have to allow employees the freedom to make their own medical decisions. You continue to discriminate against unvaccinated employees now with your COVID leave protocols. This is clearly coercion to get the shot and should be stopped immediately. Allow your employees the choice if they want to get this shot as they see fit. Paid leave should not be based on having an experimental emergency use authorization only invasive medical procedure or not. Vaccinated or not, you can still get and spread COVID. It should be the same for all employees, period. You are short-staffed, with students being left in the gym or cafeteria due to not having enough teachers or subs. Maybe you should allow your employees medical freedom and you would be able to keep them. The district continues to ignore parents. The superintendent needs to instruct all schools to take down their illegal mask notifications in all schools, not just the ones we can prove that they're still in. And why are you ignoring the unethical and illegal way in which the superintendent was hired? You all were given a brief on what occurred. The outgoing superintendent said, and I quote, "My team and I have prepared Sarita for many years to understand all the inner workings of the over 20 departments I oversee," end quote. So if that were true, why would he not encourage her to take education classes to become familiar with the classroom she's never stepped foot in as an educator? Instead, he colluded behind the scenes to have her installed equitably, violating sunshine laws. He did everything in his power, including threatening board members, to ensure his pick was selected, instead of allowing the board to vote and make the best decision for the district, which is what happened when you voted Chad Farnsworth in. We would like to see a motion from this board to form a committee to investigate the possible sunshine violation. If there was a violation through the hiring process, the public absolutely deserves to know what happened. We need action by the board on this matter. How can you sit here and say you promote excellence for our students if you are not leading by example? One board member has requested an investigation. We are asking for an investigation. If there was no wrongdoing, what are you so afraid of? This is not going away. We are not going away. SaveSeminoleSchools.com. Thank you.
I don't know that I can see it over that, though. I'm only kidding. That's Good afternoon. Equity is choosing an airline captain for skin color over ability. Equity is hiring an engineer to build airplanes and skyscrapers and bridges, not for his proven ability to do those things, but because he fits an agenda. Equity is firing a vetted and qualified candidate for school superintendent and blatantly installing one that has not one day's experience as a teacher or administrator. Arguably, the most important position in all of Seminole County school system hasn't any discernible notion of education or educating, and further has evidenced no desire to correct that deficiency. This is equity. Surely there is a person of color somewhere in the Seminole County school system whose proficiency is education. Yes, of course there is. Go find him or her. We don't care about color, we care about competency. Find the best one that represents the values of this community and upholds the value that we taxpayers are paying for by deciding to buy homes, build community, and live here. Tell you what, we'll make it easy for you. Go find 20 qualified candidates, black, brown, tan, yellow, anything but white. Let them hash it out and present their best qualities and let the best man or woman win. We, the citizens, don't care about color, but apparently it is a priority with some of the members of the board here. Let experience and qualifications be the deciding factor. We would also like a committee to investigate possible sunshine law violations we believe occurred during the hiring process. Thank you.
After Joseph D'Alessandro will be Belinda Ewan, Nancy Lloyd, and Leslie Kirschenbaum.
Good evening. I've been teaching for 12 years, and for many reasons, it is a true calling, not just a job with a paycheck. I want to start by establishing that fair working conditions and compensation for teachers is not some self-serving or greedy request. I've already gotten my license, for example, to sell insurance and annuities in Florida to try and supplement my pay. I'm concerned about unfair teacher compensation because it has caused a terrible teacher shortage that hinders the quality of education for our community's children. To clarify, the situation has been a product of over a decade of neglectful policies long before COVID. Would a parent or guardian rather have their child taught by a first-year teacher or a teacher with 10 years of experience? According to the Florida Education Association, 40% of Florida's new teachers leave the classroom within their first 5 years in the profession, and this is 15 to 20% above the national average. When considering implied training costs, every 4 new teachers essentially costs the school district and our taxpayers the equivalent of paying for 5 teachers. The district claims that improving teacher retention rates is one of its top priorities, but 2 months into our current school year, the state of Florida had 5,100 teacher vacancies to fill. I know that I am exponentially better now in my 12th year teaching than I was during my first year teaching. This is not meant as a slight to our newer teachers, but instead the reality of the situation. I know my knowledge of subject matter, strategies in teaching, and classroom management skills increase exponentially every year. No teacher expects to get rich financially. We are intrinsically motivated and rewarded with the success, kindness, and the happiness of our students and their families. That being said, I am a teacher with 12 years of experience, a department leader of social studies. However, after the most recently insulting offer and our tentative agreement from our school board, I have the same salary as a first-year teacher. In any other career, we would think it ludicrous if we expected to retain talent if we don't compensate professionals fairly. According to the National Education Association, Florida's average starting pay for teachers ranks 30th in the nation, but its overall teacher salary ranks 49th. How can we hire the best teachers if we can't demand the best teachers because we are so desperate to fill the spots with anyone? We need the help of our community members to advocate on our behalf by putting ample pressure on our school board members and our state legislature. As a civics teacher, there's nothing on our exams to measure if I work with leaders in our community and apply real-world situations and teach with current events, but isn't this the kind of education we want for our students? The alternative is inexperienced teacher using textbook assignments, and I've seen far too many teachers burn out and feel underappreciated and undervalued. A state senator once said to me in his office, he doesn't care about making teachers happy, and that we are very low on the list of factors that impact children and set them up for success. So I ask you here today if you agree.
Belinda Ewan.
Hello, good evening. My name is Belinda Ewan, and I'm a resident of Oviedo. Tonight I'm here to make you aware of the absences. As you know, and as you have stated tonight, we have a lot of absences, both of teachers and students. I would like to inform you that our students are sitting in the gym and on the computer, in the computer labs, playing on their phones. And a parent texted me this week and said her son spent his time at school trying to beat his solitaire score. My parents moved here 28 years ago because of the school districts. I followed my parents and bought a home in 2006. The presentation tonight on graduation was very promising. It's wonderful. We hear great things about Seminole County all the time. That's why we live here. But there's no way, if our teachers aren't present, that they are getting, and our children are having no one there to oversee them, that our students are getting the best education that they possibly can. I understand. I talked to different people in the community, and I asked them, and they said that we had a shortage of teachers prior to COVID, like this young man had said. This is where we put our children. This is what we expect. We expect better. We expect better. We saw amazing reports tonight. So thank you for talking about it tonight, and I'd like to see it improve in future. Thank you.
Nancy Lloyd, followed by Leslie Kirschenbaum and Cheryl Bryant.
Good evening, Chair Pennock and board members. My name is Nancy Lloyd from Altamont Springs. I have 2 issues to address this evening. First, Seminole County Public Schools are a very important part of our community, both in economics and in education. Seminole parents put their trust in you every single day when they send their children to your schools. My concern takes us back to February 2021. There were alleged Sunshine Law violations during the process in which our new superintendent was hired. An investigation was called for by one of the board members at that time, and to my knowledge, no investigation has been initiated. I am requesting the board make a motion to establish a committee to look into possible Sunshine Law violations in February of 2021 during the superintendent hiring process. Please add this to the meeting agenda on February 8th. Second, this week I received the paid leave notice that teachers have been given with their new contract. I assume you are all familiar with this financially unfair policy that actually puts pressure on your dedicated professionals. Pressure to make them go against their personal belief about medical freedom and taking a vaccine that is now being shown to be ineffective. Not only does this policy put pressure on adults to get an experimental treatment, it also pressures them to do the same to their children. Please do not discriminate with these COVID funds that you are receiving. If one teacher can get paid leave after testing positive, then all teachers deserve the same consideration. I am asking this board to re-examine this part of the teacher contract and come up with a fair leave policy. This school district is very concerned about equity. You can't pick and choose when you will and will not support equal treatment for your employees. Why don't unvaccinated teachers deserve the same financial benefit as those who got the experimental COVID vaccine? Please right this wrong. Thank you for considering these requests.
Hello, hi, my name is Leslie Kirschenbaum. Happy New Year's, lady. Happy New Year, ladies. Hope everyone had a great break, much needed among us all. It's a new year and with new issues to handle. I'd like to discuss the issue of parents. I have a child actually in ESC program. He's a special needs. I put him in. I took the leap of faith and put him in a public school ESC program. They are not allowing me to go and enter his classroom for the next 30 days. I don't know if they're following the rules, but from what I saw, I would like for that to be revised. My son just started, and I'm freaking out as a new parent, not being able to see my nonverbal son in his classroom setting. So I don't know what needs to be done, but if you guys can look into that. I don't know if ESC can be special with kids that are nonverbal, but please, I would like some help there. Also, what else we've got? I request that you guys start a committee to investigate the superintendent hire. We have committees for almost everything. Many in the county are petitioning to look into this matter, and we just want to move on from the scandals that has been brought on our county all last year. Also, the dividends programs. I've spoken to a lot of parents that are trying to volunteer. Some do have a past record that at 20 years old were arrested for fighting on the streets of downtown. And at 45 years old, they cannot come and volunteer to see their second grader in their class. I don't know if we can relook into this, but there are so many parents that do deserve a chance to be with their kids in their class for something minor that was, I guess, a violent I don't know, but there are parents who have never been charged of a criminal. They've never been charged with anything. However, they cannot become a dividend. I've spoken to about 6 parents. I saw their record, and it was something when they were like 19, 20, still following them. But they would like a chance, and I'm speaking on those, that if we can relook into that, we would appreciate it. And other than that, Happy New Year, ladies. Thank you very much for your time. All right.
Happy New Year. My name is Cheryl Bryant, and I live in Lake Mary, Florida. And God bless all of you today as we enter this next year. I hope it's a successful one. We citizens receive lots of emails and phone calls and are approached by folks who want to make changes in the schools. They're interested in those of us who show up at meetings. And many of us may disagree on some issues, but agree that we want the best for the public school children of Seminole County. Despite what might be said, we aren't all of the same political persuasion. Might surprise you all that I supported Bernie Sanders and knocked on doors for Barack Obama. So there are all different kinds of people who want what's best for the children of Seminole County. So anyone who's watching this program right now, please feel free to join us and make a difference in our community. I also would like to say that I earnestly and respectfully am asking that the Seminole County School Board initiate a committee to investigate any and all sunshine law violations concerning the hiring of the superintendent of Seminole County Public Schools. It is very concerning to us that hiring in this district is done in an ethical and above board and legal manner. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
Thank you, and that concludes public comment. Moving on, Superintendent, do you have a recommendation on the consent agenda?
Yes, that the consent agenda be approved.
So moved.
Second.
Christine, was that you?
Yes.
Across. Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. No items pulled for separate consideration, no student discipline hearings, no unfinished business, no new business. Superintendent, do you have a report?
Yes, it's a read-only report, and it's included in your book.
Okay, and we are at board committee updates. Member Calderon.
Committees, but I did want to say a few thank yous. One to Addition Financial and UCF for honoring our Teachers of the Year at their basketball game on January 5th. I wanted to thank Heidi Gooch and her team for welcoming all of our interns this year. Member Krause and I, on behalf of the entire board, thank them all for being here, and it was exciting to see how many were participating. Attended some student forums, some school visits, attended the MLK parade yesterday in Sanford, and wanted to say thank you to Sertoma for their annual fundraising to be able to support our super students. So that concludes my report.
Vice Chair Sanchez.
First, I'm going to talk about the Central Florida School Board Coalition. The meeting that we had on Monday, Dr. Calderon joined me in the meeting. And we talked about, actually it was last Monday, getting confused. We talked about the legislative session, which started last week and will end in March. And it's extremely important that everybody voices their concerns and reaches out to their legislators as much as possible, either by writing or emailing or calling. If you could, go to the Senate.org page as well as the House of Rep page. Look over all the bills. There's over 3,000 bills that are filed every year. And sadly, we may get 200 bills that are passed. And there are many bills related to education. And I know somebody was speaking earlier about the legislators and making sure that they understand what's going on. And being a past teacher and constantly being in Tallahassee, and I will be going up there again, it's extremely important that our educators and everybody speak on behalf of what's going on. A lot of our money comes from there. And remember, we're 41 out of 50 states in the funding that we get for our employees. That's pretty sick, actually very sad. And the only way we can do something about it is if we all start to vocalize and speak up. We can only do so much with the little money that we do get. And certain money is earmarked towards certain things. Also, there will be a lot of bills on mental health, and that's near and dear to me. I think it's extremely important as well to everybody else that we do whatever we can to advocate for our staff, our students, and our families to make sure that they get the support and help and all the resources that are available for them. As we know, the burnout rate is extremely high, as one of our speakers had mentioned. And if we want to keep our teachers, then we need to do something to make sure that we keep them and make sure that they're happy and not having to work 2 to 3 jobs. Or having to stay at work until 9 o'clock at night or at home still working on papers or entering grades. We have a revenue problem. It's not an expenditure problem, and it's the money that we need from the legislators and the federal government as well. So speak up, make sure that we have that flexibility for the funds so we can utilize it the way we need to. Safety and security is a topic as well. Also, transportation, one bill, and it has a companion bill already, is to make transportation bus stops from 2 miles to 1 mile. And of course, that would be a huge mess in a lot of people's lives to have to drive their children to school if we end up having to, drive them or they have to walk that extra distance. And they're trying to figure out if they could do that. So with the fact that we have bus shortages and, not enough bus drivers and so on and so forth. So look over that bill as well. IEPs are also a hot topic. Of course, financial literacy, and there's just so many. I can't even, I have like pages and pages full of bills, and take some that you like, look over it. If you want to, feel free to reach out to me. My number is on the website. You can reach my cell number as well. Anybody can call my cell box. I was talking about the legislators having their heads in a sandbox, but please reach out, and I'll be more than happy to discuss it with you, or reach out to the legislators too. Also, like I said, dealing with the psychological and emotional damage and controlling everything that's going on with mental health during this pandemic. I think, and I have said this numerous times, that is the number one concern. You can't have educational goals being reached if we don't have that as our basis, and making sure everybody is emotionally stable as much as possible. Like I said, reach out to me, go up to Tallahassee, form a group, do whatever you need to do. And then the next thing I wanted to talk about was the zoo. Thank you to everybody that went to the Asian Lantern Festival. It was a huge success. I believe we had twice as many people go to the Asian Lantern Festival this year than last year, and in the past. And I believe because it is outside, it's a wonderful event. We have so many other events coming up. We have the animals golf tournament that's coming up, and we have spring break has different events that will be hosted for our students. So they do sell out quickly. So I would suggest going onto the Central Florida Zoo website and sign up your children if you want them to go either to the President's Day camp or to the spring break camps. They have them for all age groups. They also have art workshops, and registration is filling up quickly. So please go ahead and do that. Also keep in mind that with inflation and with everything else, our cost of feeding our animals has gone up like 30%. And it's not like we can just feed them anything. Everything has to be approved for the animals. So helping out as much as possible. If you know any companies that would like to sponsor or help, please feel free to send them over to the zoo, and we would love to have your support. And on that note, I believe that is all I have. Oh, and accessibility, assessment and accountability with the statewide assessment, they do not know what they're doing yet. Okay, so we need to help them as much as possible. I'm begging everybody to help with this, because I don't want us leaving from one sort of assessment and putting our poor assessment team into another mess where they're trying to put things together when they're already inundated with so much that they have to do. And speaking about that, thank you to our wonderful county officials up here. You guys have been awesome covering classrooms. We appreciate you so much. I know it's not easy, and you took time out of your busy schedule to cover classrooms this past week. And I know that all of us are doing as much as we can possibly do. We do not want our students sitting in the auditorium. That is not something that needs to be done. This is a nationwide issue, and it's happening everywhere. So everybody, as much as possible, please help out so we can make sure that our children get the best education and our teachers and employees are happy. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Member Kraus?
Thank you very much. We all attended the graduation at Eugene Gregory, it's always fun to see these kids have really struggled, and they made it. The Children's Cabinet did a State of the County. I forwarded you all of the documents, but one of the 4 pillars under education, but it also showed up in other pillars, is staffing. Staffing is a huge issue across the board, and additionally mental health services and staffing for that. So please take a few minutes if you get the time to review their summary. We're trying to connect services that are in our county and share that information with all of you. So yesterday I attended the Oviedo Dr. Martin Luther King parade and celebration with our superintendent, and it was very cold, but it was a very good turnout. I also attended the Lawton Elementary School Advisory Council. They hosted part of us on Zoom and part of us in person. They said one of the things that they heard at a meeting was that they want to invite us to hear their concerns and their issues. And I think they were struggling with reporting COVID cases. The principal, I think, has since found a solution and working on doing that because it's required. There's mandates and so forth that you have to do. So I think the information sharing was very helpful, and I encourage you all to do that if you get the chance. And that is all of my reports. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Kraus. Member Almond?
I have a very short report. The only thing that I had that fell outside of the break was the Eugene Gregory graduation, and I want to wish Dr. Kirby Bentley congratulations on her retirement. She's really served these students well. I found this graduation to be the most impactful one I've gone to in all these years. They had 2 students, and their stories were so compelling. The obstacles that they overcame to graduate and the difference that it will make in their lives. They will have bright futures. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a few, we had mayors and managers today, and organically the ILA came up, and the mayor of Winter Springs let us know that it is not going to be on the agenda anytime soon. So I think that we need to add that to our work session for February 8th so that we can figure out a course of action to move forward. I did ask the staff. I had a thought of maybe there were a lot of changes to the agreement that were needed because of statute changes. Mm-hmm. So I asked if they could look at what those were, if they were significant, if there were consequences that would impact our school district in being non-compliant, to see if maybe that would be a driving force to get the agreement signed. So they're kind of in the process of looking at that. As I know many of you guys have attended voter registrations at our high schools, and it's such a fun experience to see all of that process and the kids getting registered. I would probably say after the end of all of this, we'll probably have 3,000 more voters registered, which is pretty awesome. And I too extend my thank you. I did get some calls and messages just extending how fast our staff responded to fill the need, especially at one of the high schools who had an additional 40 staff call out sick last week, and our staff just showed up, and one of the staff members just said, these kids wanted us in there, and they were a pleasure to be around, and our future is bright, and it was an awesome experience for them. So kudos to all of you who made that happen. And that is all I have, and I'll call the meeting to adjourn. Have a good evening.